I would like to call the Monday, July 12, 2021 Common Council meeting to order. Clerk Jones, I know that there are some statements or comments that you would like to make regarding the link for this meeting and other expectations.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, members of the public. For audio quality, we will be muting everyone not speaking by default to maintain good audio quality for the council and yourselves. If you would like to speak during the meeting on a specific agenda item, please submit your request in the chat, and directions to do so are in the chat. We ask that you provide your full name and your address, as those are required for all speakers at in-person council meetings. If you would like to be called on during the meeting to provide public input, please insert the following again into the chat: your full name and your address, and you will be called on during the relevant time for public input. For citizens that wish to speak during the privilege of the floor, please insert the following into the chat, and the council president will call on you during the relevant time for public input. Provide your name and your address, and you will then be given 3 minutes to speak. Please be sure to unmute yourself prior to giving your remarks.
Thank you. Disrespectful, rude, or disruptive speech or actions will not be tolerated. Such speech and/or actions, as well as verbal attacks on any person, may result in the individual, without notice, losing the remaining of his or her time. At this time, we'll have the invocation will be given by Norn Andrews, Grace Point Church.
Sorry, everyone, can you hear me? My camera stopped working.
Yes, we can hear you,
Okay.
Mr.
all right.
Andrews, and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's pray. Lord, first of all, we just acknowledge you for your greatness and for who you are. We thank you for South Bend. We thank you for this region and this place that we call home. We love our city and the people in it. And your word says, except you build the city, except you keep the city, that we labor in vain. So God, we ask that you come and you rest on these individuals and you be part of this meeting. Lead them and guide them right now as they manage and address the needs of this community. Proverbs says, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. So Lord, I thank you for these individuals who have been entrusted with the privilege to come and give their ideas and perspectives. And I ask that you bless them in those efforts right now. Bless their lives as they give of their time and their energy. Let the spirit of wisdom, counsel, and might and the fear of the Lord rest on these individuals as they make decisions tonight. May the inspiration of the Almighty give understanding and clarity of thought. Open our eyes, Lord, that we may behold wondrous things, that we would be strong and do exploits in and around this city, that we would bring honor and glory to you. We ask it all in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. And thank you so much for that beautiful invocation. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Davis,
Henry's here.
Councilmember Lee,
Present.
Councilmember Warner,
Here.
Councilmember Wax,
Present.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Present.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Present.
Councilmember Hammond,
Present.
Vice President McBride,
Present.
President White,
Present.
9 present.
Thank you. We'll now have the report from the Subcommittee on Minutes for the June 14th, 2021 meeting.
Report of Subcommittee on Minutes. To the Common Council of the City of South Bend, the subcommittee has inspected the minutes of the July 14th, of the June 14, 2021 meeting and found them to be correct. Therefore, we recommend the same be approved.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion to accept the subcommittee on minutes for the June 14th meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion. It's been seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
President White,
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. We'll now have under special business, a special proclamation from at-large Councilwoman Lori Hammond.
Thank you, President White. I feel very honored to present this special proclamation acknowledging Pride Month and the significant contribution the LGBTQ+ community makes in South Bend. The National Month of Recognition may be June, but our community is continuing to celebrate all summer with the Pride in the Park event on July 18th. At this time, I will read the special proclamation. A special proclamation acknowledging the ongoing LGBTQ rights movement together with the recent LGBTQ Pride Month. Whereas the month of June has come to be recognized as LGBTQ, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer Pride Month to commemorate the violence that took place at the Stonewall Inn in New York on June 28, 1969, often viewed as the birth of the modern LGBTQ rights movement. And whereas all people, regardless of age, gender identity, race, color, religion, marital status, national origin, sexual orientation, or physical challenges, have the right to be treated in accordance with their intrinsic value as human beings, not only in specifically designated months, but also every day of every year. And whereas the City of South Bend accepts and welcomes people of diverse backgrounds because a diverse population leads to a more vibrant community. And whereas the South Bend LGBTQ communities are a vital part of this city community, including professional, employment, academic, cultural, and athletic, and necessary to the continued growth and vibrancy of the city. And whereas the City of South Bend is dedicated to fostering acceptance of all its residents and preventing discrimination of any kind. And whereas, while the City of South Bend recognizes that some members of our community are embracing new definitions of sexuality and gender, it also acknowledges that the need for education and awareness continues in order that all people are accepted and appreciated for their intrinsic value. And now therefore be it proudly proclaimed by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana as follows. Section 1. The city acknowledges the ongoing LGBTQ rights movement and the establishment of June as LGBTQ Pride Month. Section 2, acceptance and appreciation of all people for their intrinsic human value is not limited to a designated month, but is something we should aspire to every day. Section 3, we look forward to continued contributions of the LGBTQ communities to the diversity and inclusiveness of our city.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hammond, for that special proclamation. We'll now move to reports from city offices, update on local assistant programs by Denise Rydell, Chief Innovation and Technology Officer. Council members, after her presentation, each council person will have opportunity to ask 2 questions. Thank you so much and welcome.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Denise Lynn Riedel, and I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for the City of South Bend with offices on the 12th floor of this building. So I'm here to just provide an update to council about some of the work that the various city offices are doing around getting increased signups from residents on very timely local assistance programs that have been created in wake of COVID that are helping residents in economic hardship. So I wanted to provide an overview of these programs today and let you know the state of what city offices are doing to support these programs and give council an opportunity to ask questions. I want to also disclaim that I'm providing this update that represents many city offices and actually many people outside of city staff that are hard at work getting these services to people as quickly as possible. So I will try my best to answer your questions today. Anything I can't answer, I'm very happy to find out for you and then provide that in writing for council later. You can move on to the next slide. So again, just as an agenda, I'm going to focus on 3 assistance programs in particular for council today, provide some background on each of them, give council some participation rates for each of the selected programs, just to give you an idea of what uptake looks like, and then overview some of the activities that various city offices and stakeholders are doing in support of these programs. And again, I want to emphasize this is very much a cross-departmental team effort at the city that involves my team as well as the mayor's office, Public Works, DCI, especially Alkina Aldridge's team. So just want to emphasize that. So the programs I'm going to discuss today include a city-run program that many of you are familiar with, the CAP program, that stands for Customer Assistance Program. I know our Public Works Director, Eric Horvath, has mentioned this several times in the last few weeks. That program is for ongoing utility support and assistance to low-income residents. Any resident in the city of South Bend that is eligible for the state LIHEAP program, that's the Energy Assistance Program run by the state, can be automatically enrolled into the CAP program. They have similar eligibility standards. And again, that is run by the city, and the administrative partner for that program is Real Services. The second program I'm going to discuss today is a new one called Citywide Classroom South Bend. This is an initiative that was created when the city of South Bend, in partnership with the South Bend Community School Corporation, applied for a GEAR grant from the state of Indiana to get some funds to address the digital divide in wake of COVID. As many of you are aware, students really struggled to connect to the internet to keep up with their e-learning. They struggled to do their homework. The digital divide existed before COVID, but COVID really exposed even more fault lines of inequity when it came to technology access. So those state grant funds are being used locally to pay for hotspots, free internet access at homes. So that's being distributed in partnership with InFocus here in South Bend. The third program I'll discuss today is the ERA, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, that is administered and run by the county. So this, as well as the Citywide Classroom South Bend program, are inherently short-term programs, unlike CAP, which is meant to exist in perpetuity. This program comes from federal dollars and really is targeted at residents within the county who are, their names are on a rental agreement, and the money can go towards rent past or future within a certain window, as well as utility bills. So there are many administrative partners involved in that program, and again, it's county run. So just want to quickly overview the participation, just so that council can get an idea of the scale and scope of each of these programs, 2 of which have very recently scaled up. So the CAP program, the Customer Assistance Program, currently has just over 2,500 households registered in that program. And so about 60% of those households that have signed up are receiving the highest tier of support for the CAP program. That currently is $19. So that means every month on their utility bill, they'll get an automatic $19 off of their bill. For Citywide Classroom South Bend, we've almost reached 1,000 households served by the program, but that equates to over 2,000 South Bend Community School Corporation students, and including their entire households, over 4,000 people getting some kind of internet access from that program. Over 1,000, about 1,100 connections total have been distributed. Over 600 hotspots, almost 500 at-home Comcast Internet Essential packages, and almost over 150 households have received both. And this is really just because the nature of the digital divide in South Bend and other cities really means we have to be multimodal about our approaches. Oftentimes students are quite transient, so they'll need a standard at-home connection, perhaps provided by Comcast, but they might also need a hotspot on top of that just because there might be several people in the household using the connection, or they might be going back and forth between households and they need that connection that travels with them, regardless of where they are, regardless of their circumstance. So we have not limited students from taking advantage of both types of connectivity at once. And then lastly, the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. So I don't have more granular statistics on this right now. We're actually working with the county to see what kind of data sharing agreements and partnerships we can set up just to do some shared analytics and really dive deeper into this information with them. But big picture, as of July 1st, we know that about $2.5 million have been paid out of that fund across over 600 approved applications. At that point, over 1,500 applications had been submitted on the online portal. And of the $2.5 million that was distributed, a little over 2.2 was for rental assistance, and the rest was for utility assistance or other types of assistance. So that's what the participation statistics look like for each of these programs. Here's just a map that the Citywide Classroom South Bend team shared with me, just to give you an idea of where the different applications for that program are coming from. The yellow dots are the most dense in terms of the sheer number of applications coming in, with the bluer areas being the more dispersed applications. So you can sort of see where demand for that internet access program is highest in our region.
Can you identify those for us?
The schools?
It's just hard to read from here.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So Harrison Elementary is right in that yellow dot on the west side. And then Musil Elementary is in the other dense yellow dot. You can go on to the next slide. Thank you. So I'll now just go over some of the city support and activities. And again, this is coming from several teams across the city that are in some way pitching in to get the word out about these programs. I would say the bucket of work really falls into one or two categories. One is outreach. So a lot of teams are really going hard to just share this information with residents and get the word out that these resources are available to them. And that's happening in a lot of the ways that you think it would. We're doing inserts in utility bills because that reaches, every single customer in the city of South Bend. Social media campaigns and advertising. There's door-to-door canvassing. And of course, information sharing at city events. I think Citywide Classroom also even has a big billboard on Main Street. Then we're also providing technical assistance. So these are different projects we've either done or currently scoping out with some of our local partners here. One example is my team actually built out a collector app in GIS for the canvassing team that was going door to door to get signups for the Citywide Classroom South Bend program. So, the school has lots of data and has done some surveying on their students on who has issues with internet access. We also have census data that can direct our steps. So that helped inform a door-to-door campaign, and that collector app really just helped them understand which houses they hit and collect information as they went throughout that whole campaign. We also have interns on my team helping with outreach and processing on the backlog of ERA applications in partnership with InFocus. And this is really crucial. I think, when something like COVID happens and there are these really important programs like this, I feel like the things we used to think of as boundaries between different teams and different government entities sort of purposely become fuzzy, and you realize we're all on the same team and we all have to help each other out. And it's in our best interest to make sure as many residents know about this as possible. So we've certainly been pitching in. There's a City of South Bend Bloomberg Fellow that's here with us for the summer that I've assigned to help with this process. So she is doing a lot of process mapping and process improvement on each of these individual programs, and also finding synergies between these programs to see how we can create universal screenings, how we can make sure different people who are signed up for these programs who are eligible for the others, we're making sure we're cross-pollinating. And she's providing support to a lot of those key stakeholders. There are 2 programs at the bottom there that are pending, just because we are trying to figure out some better data sharing agreements with the county. But I would like to, in hands-on manner, assist with some data analysis across these different assistance programs, again, so that we know exactly, where the geographic gaps are. We can benchmark them against models, like how many households do I think in this tract are eligible for this program versus this program, kind of where are the areas of the city with the highest opportunity that we know there are eligible households, but they're not all signed up for these programs. That's something we want to figure out. And then another thing too we want to help with is just some automation around reporting and some back-end streamlining that I think we can assist with if we have access to that information. So those are just a few ways that the city is assisting the various stakeholders on this front. And again, there are lots of other programs that are helping residents right now, but those are some of the 3 biggest ones that I just wanted to focus on today.
Thank you. Council members, are there any questions? And could we also get a copy of your PowerPoint presentation and one sent to the clerk's office so that it can be posted on our website as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it so much. Council members?
Yes.
Okay. I think Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan and then Councilman Henry Davis.
Thank you, President White. Thank you, Ms. Rydell, for your presentation and for being here this evening. As you and I were talking about this prior, there's one other program that I thought you might have talked about, and that is the lead abatement program.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of that came out of, there are all these programs and everybody's doing their own thing in terms of mailing and whatever. But what is the coordinated effort? So I think you spoke to that, but can you clarify, like, all this information being bundled together for residents?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely it is. And those 3 programs, I did a deep dive into them, but there are others, and the lead program is probably one of the most important ones that I didn't mention or call out explicitly. But yes, the point is, and the reason why we're kind of coordinated in this way, and we're all helping each other, is because at the end of the day, we're all trying to reach the same households with different buckets of money, with different programs, and each of these programs have different eligibility standards. And so we realized we really need to pool together outreach efforts. We need to make sure, every household that knows about Citywide Classroom also knows about lead, also knows about the ERA, also knows about CAP. And so, yes, absolutely, that information is bundled in as well.
Great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Councilman Davis?
Yeah, sure. I'm result driven, and so the things that happens from the start and the things in the middle, those things could appear to be frustrating to members of the public, and I don't know how best to say this, but what's taking so long with the connectivity for Wi-Fi throughout the city? I mean, this has been a discussion. I mean, it predates you, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
right.
certainly.
So since you're obviously in the driver's seat with much of this discussion, why is it so hard for us to get some of the areas that are needed the most? A lot of them are in my district. The connectivity that they deserve. I never understood why this was so hard. We had MetroNet and then somehow that thing disappeared, but it's something else now, and we weren't able to tap into it. And then, the pandemic again, like you said, exposed so much more. I even sent the guy to you, right? That we've been talking, right? So why is this so hard?
That is such a good question, Councilman Davis, and I like I could talk about that for maybe an hour, but I'll just like very quickly address it. And you're absolutely right; it predates me, and there are systemic policy issues and like regulatory policies at the federal level, at the state level, that make it so difficult to get equitable connectivity in cities like South Bend, and so really, the long story short is like internet is essential, like utilities, like exactly like telephone, like electricity. We used to think of it as a luxury, but now it's quite essential. But we don't regulate it or treat it like it's a utility, and that really is the most simple way to describe why we don't have equitable access to internet the way we would have equitable access to electricity and clean running water. And because we're regulating it, like a purely private entity, like that's really the original sin of why connectivity is inequitable. And I could go on for a long period of time because there's like structural policy challenges around it. Really, cities, councils, mayors, at the hyperlocal level, we really have at our disposal, the levers we have are more like Band-Aids. They're things like what we're doing now, which is impactful. We're providing free internet to households. We're providing hotspots. But in terms of like structural, issues around infrastructure and regulation, it's really hard to tackle that without intervention from the state and federal level. And so I'm sure that was a very unsatisfying answer to a very big, important question.
No, I have another one for you.
Yeah.
So what can we do to help close this digital divide, as they call it? So what can we do as a council, as a body, to figure out or to end this problem that we're having?
Absolutely. So I would say that it's about waging war on two fronts. One front is throwing throwing as much weight as possible behind the short-term battle, which is, initiatives like Citywide Classroom South Bend that help with short-term fixes around connectivity, getting as many people online as possible, getting people to see the value of the internet. We know why people don't adopt the internet, and it's a mixture of they can't afford it, they can't afford a device, they might not have access to it if they're sort of in the outskirts of town or in a rural area. But then some people just don't even know what it can do to improve their lives. And so being evangelists for those solutions, really like getting people to sign up for those programs, that's the short-term front. And then the structural front is more tricky. In other states, municipalities have the ability to do more creative things locally, public-private partnerships, owning infrastructure, having more like direct relationships with ISPs. A lot of that stuff is our hands are tied when it comes to those types of solutions because of the state of Indiana. And so these things are just not available to us from the menu of solutions that we can pick from.
Please send us what you have as it relates to policy and let us dovetail into that and pick it apart. Because I'm going to say that we have some bandwidth there to help not only stir the pot, but get the results that we need and desire.
Yeah. And I will say too, you mentioned MetroNet, now called ChoiceLight. Just to clarify too, ChoiceLight is actually a very unique asset we have here in South Bend. It's a dark fiber network. that several universities and anchor institutions invested in several years ago. It's never provided residential service. So that was one thing I just wanted to clarify in your comments, Councilperson Davis, was that they didn't stop providing service to, households. Like they actually were, they're a dark fiber network that ISPs deliver service on top of, and they really provide sort of services to anchor institutions and business corridors. And so just wanted to clarify that. But that's a very good question, and I've taken up a lot of time speaking to it, but I'm happy to grab coffee with anyone in the city, anyone at all, and talk more about it.
Councilwoman, McBride?
Thank you. You mentioned 630 applicants approved out of the 1585. That's about 40%. Trying to understand some of the reasons why they have not been approved or why they're disqualified, and are there quick fixes to getting people qualified? What are some of the reasons, and then can we help them? Or if you apply and you don't qualify, do we just throw you out and you're done?
So I can't speak to the exact nature of the backlog. Our fellow right now, Juliana, our Bloomberg fellow, is looking into exactly what's going on right now with that gap that you mentioned, and so that we can figure out what we can do to help, like you said, but not that entire gap isn't people who aren't qualified necessarily. It might include applications that haven't produced all their documentation, so there needs to be some back and forth to get the right evidence of need, or people that need, landlord attestations, like their landlords to confirm that they're behind on rent and so forth. And so it is very likely not necessarily an eligibility challenge, but more of a documentation challenge. It is a pretty lengthy a pretty lengthy application that does require things like, evidence of need, leases, bills, and so forth.
Second question is, are we also reaching out, besides in focus, are we utilizing like Bendable or the different libraries or universities to have access?
To
give us a broader base of access throughout the city.
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't think Bendable actually has a role in this, but I think they would be a great partner to tap into. We are talking to the libraries, making sure that librarians, I know their traffic is down right now just because of COVID, but still they're the go-to people in their neighborhoods asking, answering questions about, whether it's questions people have going in about job applications or other kind of assistance applications or technology questions, getting them trained on not just how to sign someone up for ERA, but all of the programs that we mentioned today. Just so, again, like all the frontline people that would be assisting with those applications sort of know all of the different things that they can direct people to that they might be eligible for in the city.
Thank you.
Councilman Kenneth Lee.
Thank you, Ms. Rydell, for your presentation. You're very knowledgeable, and I'm looking forward to going back through it when I can actually see it. What's the most effective means of getting residents enrolled? I know that you gave different ways that you guys are trying to do. What's been the most effective?
That's a good question. I don't think I can confidently answer that yet. We're trying to look at the data now to figure that out. There have been a few outreach pushes recently, the canvassing push for Citywide Classroom, the kind of big utility bill push. What we'd love to do is to deep dive into the application data to see if there were spikes after like the different efforts that city staff and city partners have put into in the last month or so. And so I'm hoping I can get that answered for you quickly. But right now, in the absence of that, we're trying everything.
And then as Councilman Davis has said, how can we as council people ensure that people in our districts have this information? Mm-hmm. And as Councilman McBride said, help them through the process of getting enrolled, because I know that this is a big issue, especially in my district. of the digital divide and making sure people actually know what's available. So
Mhm.
how can we help in that process?
Absolutely. Just being evangelists for these programs, telling people about them, it's very effective. I could circulate to council sort of a script of sorts that really centralizes, as briefly as possible, the main pages and action items for each of these programs, so that you can use those, verbally in emails to your constituents, because, as given your role in the community, I think that, you guys being megaphones for all of these programs is very effective.
That's all.
Councilman Lori Hammond.
Thank you, President White. Denise, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm excited to hear that we are starting to break down some of the barriers that the city has traditionally functioned within these silos of operations. And right now, I know we're dealing with a lot of emergency programs, but what I would like to just kind of put a bug in everybody's ear, if we can continue to cooperate in this way, even when we're beyond these emergency programs, I think it'd be a much more efficient way for the city to run.
Mhm.
And I'm sure you already know that, but I just wanted to give words to that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's also that's very true, especially for intergovernmental relationships. The way we're working with the school system has been great. I personally enjoy collaborating very much with the technology team there, and the county and other local groups. That's been very valuable too. So, and I agree. Mhm.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions from other council members? Seeing none, again, thank you for your wonderful presentation. And we look forward to working with you and receiving the information and also recommendations how we can assist to ensure that that message resonates within for our residents. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.
We'll now move to our resolutions. We'd like to note that there are no bills or action under committee of the whole, and there will be no bills for third reading. At this time, Clerk Jones, would you please read Resolution 2141?
Yes. Resolution 2141, a resolution confirming the adoption of a declaratory resolution designating certain areas within the city of South Bend, Indiana, commonly known as 504 South Lafayette Boulevard, South Bend, Indiana, 46601, as an economic revitalization area for purposes of a 8-year multifamily real property tax abatement for Real America Development, LLC.
Thank you. This is a confirming resolution, so therefore there's no committee report. Is there a presentation from community investment or is the developer present?
Can you hear me?
We do ask that you state your name and address for the record, please.
Of course. Good afternoon, members of the council. My name is Santiago Garces. I am the executive director of the Department of Community Investment, and I am here to present again, like we shared with you last time, details of the proposed project. So I guess I'll defer to Jeff to see if there's any further points. Otherwise, we can do an overview of the project again for your pleasure.
So we do have the developer present. We do ask that you state your name and to give us a brief overview regarding this particular resolution.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Ryan, Vice President of Development for Real America Development. And we are proposing 127 apartments on the property, with 60 of those being affordable and 67 being market rate. We're going in for an application for rental housing tax credits for the affordable in 2 weeks, and that's the primary use of the tax abatement for that. I would like to point out from your previous presentation on the digital divide is on the affordable apartments. We will include free Wi-Fi for all of the apartments on there, all of the affordable apartments to help bridge that digital divide.
Thank you. Is there any additional information that you would like to make from community investment? Santi, any additional?
No, again, I'm happy to share. Let me share really quickly the overview of the project just to refresh people's memories. Let's see if this is. So again, it's a $19 million investment. The city is required to provide a 10% match, which would be accomplished through the proposed tax abatement. The city, unfortunately, has not received one of these tax credits, which are very competitive at the state since 2014. The proposed project would take place in this location, which is currently owned by the Redevelopment Commission, across the street from the Four Winds Field. Again, just reminding people that after the completion of the project and at the end of the tax abatement, the property would generate new taxes for the city of $463,000 per year, which right now are not being generated. The property is not generating any taxes as of now, as well as creating 4 new full-time positions. But I'll stop there. I just wanted to make sure that people were able to get a quick refresh, and I defer to you, Council President, and to the rest of the council to see what questions you might have.
Council members, do you have any questions regarding the confirming resolution? Any questions? Seeing now, I'm sorry, Councilwoman Lori Hammond.
Good evening. I have been asked by a couple people in the community about placing some type of threshold of occupancy for those market value apartments, and if those are not being filled during that abatement period, the 8 years, that there could be an agreement to lower the rent because of the issues with affordable housing in the city. Is that something that your department has looked at? Is that something you've ever seen done?
I'm not entirely sure I understand the point. Again, generally the tax abatement works in that the tax burden is deferred or suspended for a number of years after the construction based on the assessed value. So there's the assessed value is based on the total amount, on the value of the property itself, not necessarily about the use of the property. So I don't think that in the past, like the council, when it receives the reports around compliance, it usually has the ability of saying that a tax abatement doesn't meet compliance if the amount of investment or the number of jobs created does not meet the amount. But if you want, we can. I don't think that they understand really what the people that have been discussing with you would try to accomplish, and we certainly can try to explore. Jeff can provide a breakdown of the units based on the affordability component. Perhaps that'd help clarify.
I can try and reiterate the comment if you'd like. The question was if we set a threshold, say for 95% occupancy, and if that is not met during that 8-year abatement time, that there would be written into the agreement that you would allow those apartments to go at something below market value.
So and Jeff can jump in a second, but with the 60 units that are affordable per the regulation of the tax credits, those need to be maintained at affordable, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Less connection. Talk about the digital divide. So those need to be maintained at the level of affordability that have been agreed, because that is a condition of the tax credit. So unless the tax credits expire and they are not resyndicated, those 60 units need to be provided at the level of affordability. With the market rate units, that would be up to the property management to decide how it gets priced. But Jeff, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I would say that the market rate apartments, that if we are not able to maintain what we consider to be an appropriate occupancy, then we would give discounts, a month free with a 13-month lease or things of that nature. I can also tell you that at our LaSalle apartments, we have not had any issues with maintaining occupancy and getting market rate rents. So we would not anticipate having issues, but if we did, then we'll look at it from a business standpoint to make sure that we're making our mortgage payment and doing a good job there.
Okay, I just wanted to bring that forward since that was brought to my attention. Thank you.
Are there any other questions prior to going to public hearing portion? Councilmember Lee?
Have we made any progress on securing local workers to work on the project yet?
From when it comes to bidding out the development, our timeline on this is we're submitting our application in 2 weeks. We will not find out if we are successful with the tax credits until mid-November, and would not be starting construction until next spring. So it is way too early in the process right now to be bidding it out or working on that piece of it, because we don't want to waste people's time if we are not successful in getting the tax credits. But we will certainly do that if we are successful with the tax credits for both the affordable and for the market rate apartments.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll now go to the public hearing portion. Clerk Jones, is there anyone waiting to speak in support of this resolution?
At this time, I don't see anyone from the public wishing to speak in support of this resolution.
Is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition?
There is no one present wishing to speak in opposition as well.
Thank you. The public hearing portion is now closed. Council members, if you do not have any statements at this time, would like to entertain a motion regarding resolution 2141, please.
Move for passage of resolution 2141.
I second.
We have a motion. It's been seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Warner? Councilmember Wax?
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Vice President McBride?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
President White?
Aye.
8 ayes.
Resolution 21-41 has been adopted. I would like to entertain a motion regarding resolution 2142 to be continued and sent back to the Rules Committee for our July 26th meeting.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion that's been seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Wax?
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky?
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan?
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond?
Aye.
Vice President McBride?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Lee?
Aye.
Councilmember Warner?
Aye.
President White?
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. We'll now move to resolution 2143. Would like to entertain a motion to accept the substitute version. So moved.
Second.
Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Tomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Vice President McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Wax.
Aye.
President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Clerk Jones, will you now read the substitute bill 21-43, please?
2143, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, expressing support and encouragement for the United Religious Communities' plans to assist refugees to resettle in our community by becoming a refugee resettlement community.
Is there a committee report?
Yes, this came before the Community Relations Committee and comes to us with a favorable recommendation.
Do we have a presenter?
Yes, President White. My name is Rachel Tomas Morgan with office on the 4th floor. And on behalf of the other sponsors of the resolution, who include President White, Vice President McBride, Chair of the Whole Nitzgotsky, Councilmember Hammond, I'm pleased to present this resolution to the council. I was saying earlier in committee that I was finalizing this resolution over the 4th of July weekend, and I couldn't think of anything more patriotic to be doing on the 4th of July weekend than writing a resolution to support new Americans in our community. This resolution is asking the council for formal support for the United Religious Communities' planned proposal to apply to be a resettlement community and to help refugees resettle in our area. This resolution provides a very brief overview of the effect of refugee programs, beginning with the 1951 Refugee Convention, which was passed in the UN General Assembly in the wake of World War II. With that, what I'd like to do is ask the sponsors of the resolution to read sections of the resolution, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. John Pinter, who can provide a little more information.
Thank you. My name is Karen White. I reside at 1912 Melbourne Way, City of South Bend. I have the pleasure of reading the first portion of the resolution, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, expressing support for the United Religious Communities' plan to assist refugees to resettle in our community by becoming a refugee resettlement community. Whereas, grounded in Article 14 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, which recognizes the rights of persons to seek asylum from persecution in other countries, the United Nations Convention on the Status of Refugees, adopted in 1951, and its 1967 protocol is the centerpiece of international refugees protection today. And whereas, according to the convention, refugees and asylums are persons who are unable or unwilling to return to their country of origin or nationality because of persecution or a well-founded fear of persecution on account of race, religion, nationality, membership in a persecuted social group, political opinions, or because they are fleeing war. And whereas at the end of 2020, there were over 82 million forcible displaced people in the world, with 26.4 million of them being refugees, approximately half of whom are under the age of 18. And
whereas the United States Department of State recognizes resettlement as a long-term, durable solution to displacement of refugees, and the Refugee Act of 1980 created the Federal Refugee Resettlement Program to provide the effective resettlement of refugees and to assist them to achieve economic self-sufficiency as quickly as possible after arrival in the United States. And whereas the United States has admitted more than 3.1 million refugees since the passage of the Refugee Act in 1980. And whereas recognizing that the challenges posed by the human mobility are above all moral and humanitarian, the United Nations General Assembly on the 19th of September of 2016 approved the New York Declaration for Refugees and Migrants, reaffirming the importance of the multilateral treaties and enhancing international cooperation and shared responsibility to protect and.
Whereas, in response to the presidential executive order issued in September of 2019, on 13 December 2019, Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb certified in writing the state's consent to participate in the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program and to participate in federal funding opportunities that assist in covering the cost of resettling refugees, thereby affirming our long tradition of welcoming and helping to resettle refugees, showing the world the compassion of Hoosiers and our willingness to give others the ability to prosper in the great state of Indiana. And whereas Governor Holcomb quoted the executive order stating, "Close cooperation with state and local government ensures that refugees are resettled in communities that are eager and equipped to support their successful integration into American society and the labor force." And whereas there are presently 3 resettlement agencies in Indiana who provide reception and placement and work with the private and public sector, nonprofits, and faith-based organizations such as the United Religious Community of St. Joseph County, whose office is in South Bend, for successful placement and integrative support services of refugees across the state of Indiana. And
Sharon McBride, 415 East Broadway, South Bend. Whereas on May 10, 2021, Mr. John Pinter of the United Religious Community of St. Joseph County presented to the Common Council its intentions and plans to apply to be a resettlement community and to help refugees resettle in our community. And whereas South Bend historically has been a city of immigrants and has had long-term engagement with refugee communities since the post-Vietnam era. And whereas new residents, along with longtime residents, contribute to the vibrant diversity that South Bend values. And whereas the South Bend Common Council desires to express its support for continued resettlement of refugees in Indiana in general, and more particularly in South Bend.
Now therefore, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana as follows. Section 1. The South Bend Common Council supports the United Religious Community's planned proposal to help refugees resettle in our community and supports the URC's application to become a refugee resettlement community through Church World Services Immigration and Refugee Program. Section 2. By promoting quality of life for all city residents, the Common Council seeks to cultivate a welcoming environment where every resident, including immigrants and refugees, have the opportunity to thrive and contribute to South Bend's health, economic prosperity, and well-being for current and future generations. Section 3, the Common Council also encourages community organizations and local residents to support URC's endeavors in refugee resettlement. Section 4, more importantly, the Common Council encourages community organizations and local residents to welcome refugees as full and appreciated members of our community. Thank you, sponsors. We'll now turn it to Mr. John Pinter for some brief comments.
Great, and thank you. And I will be very brief, but I appreciate the chance to for this to come before the whole council. Just 5 points, really. First of all, South Bend has been a very welcoming community to immigrants of all kinds. If you think about it, we're one of the cities in the country that, through the work of La Casa, helps immigrants to get an ID card to help them be able to open bank accounts. We've welcomed folks from highly professional levels to green card winners, lottery winners, to asylum seekers, and in this case, we are talking about welcoming the smallest subset of immigrants in the U.S., which are refugees. So came up in the earlier meeting a little bit about the scope of the council versus the fact that this is a federal program with some state involvement. And it is true that in coming to the city of South Bend, that we don't really ask permission to do this or a turn down for this, but it helps immensely to know that a community has been consulted about this, has given its opinions, including concerns about it, but that where there is positivity about it, it's very helpful to know going forward with the application, which, as Councilwoman Tomas Morgan mentioned, is going to go with Church World Service here to address, to invite about 100 refugees total in the year to come, the federal year to come after October of this year. That's not 100 families, that's 100 individuals. These are folks who have been severely and strongly vetted in the countries to which, after they have fled their homeland and have been declared a refugee in a second country, if they are applying to become a refugee to come here, they're vetted by Homeland Security, State Department, and others. So these are folks who it takes a couple of years to get through that process, and if there's any concerns, they wouldn't wind up being approved for it. So these 100 folks that we expect to come to our area will be among about 125,000 in the new federal fiscal year that will be receiving that benefit and come as legal residents with a visa that allows them to work, and with the idea that they become independent as quickly as possible. That's the main goal for us, is to try to get them employed and the kids in school and learning English within the first 3 months of their arrival. We've been consulting with entities, including city, county government, the health department, school districts, and a lot of nonprofit partners. I see my colleague Sam from La Casa, I think, is on this the meeting here today, and La Casa was part of our formational group, along with lots of faith communities. That's why the United Religious Community is pursuing this, is to engage a variety of faith communities and other civic organizations in helping these folks thrive, and adding that to the ministry and work that they may already be doing around helping low-income residents, people with disabilities, a variety of things that these organizations do. We want to help integrate a number of refugees to our area as well. So we appreciate the consideration. Please know that I and the folks that we are working with would be very happy to do training. If your organization, your church, your business, whatever, wants to know more about this, we have training. We're very glad to come out and mention and give some background as to who these refugee folks are, where they come from, and some of the background of the conflicts that they are escaping. And I believe I shared a copy with Council Member Tomas Morgan of the draft that we have submitted, but I'm happy to make that available as well. That's a public document, and we hope that we'll hear some positive news about going forward in the next month or so. So I'm happy to address questions, and I appreciate the chance to be here today.
Thank you, Mr. Pinter. Are there sponsors that would like to add to the presentation?
I would just say that I was honored to be asked to be a sponsor, and the comments I read are the sentiments that I have.
I would also like to add that this is right in line with my desire to fight for the dignity of the human person and to bring forth as many services and as much assistance to them as possible. So I was also honored to be asked to be part of this.
Yes, and I would say in 4942 Scenic Drive, Sheila Niezgotsky, because I did not mention that earlier in the resolution for the record. But I would like to thank Rachel Tomas Morgan for asking me to be part of this resolution, as my family came here as a result of the Displaced Person Act in 1948. So if it wasn't for them coming to this country, I would not be here today. And that was part of the federal legislation that had to do with World War II. So if you give a person an opportunity, they can grow and flourish and be beneficial to your community, as I'm a testament of here today. So thank you, Rachel, for bringing this to us.
I would just like to say thank you again. I spoke earlier in committee and just like to say that I'm honored to be a part of the resolution.
Thank you. Before going to the public hearing portion, council members, do you have any questions? You'll be able to make statements after the public hearing portion is concluded. Any questions? Yes, Councilmember Lee?
Yeah, which countries will you guys be targeting to bring people? How does that process work?
Great question. So there is a mismatch between the countries that are creating the most the biggest refugee crisis, which is Syria, Afghanistan, to a certain extent still Iraq, that there are lots of folks who are in that 25 million in the world that are refugees from those places. But because of some changes that happened in the last administration, there are not a lot of those folks that are in the application pipeline. We anticipate that will change over the next few years, but the primary places that are, if you will, creating, the longstanding usually refugee crises, but of which there's a pent-up need and folks who have been vetted and evaluated, include places from Africa, such as the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Eritrea, to a certain extent Somalia, Uganda, Kenya, are among them. And then in Ukraine is a country that has a significant number of refugees. Burma, Myanmar, that crisis continues. And while we probably wouldn't see a whole lot come to this area, there's a very large Burmese population in Fort Wayne that we could see that as well. And then what's the Northern Triangle area of Central America, which is El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala are also creating refugee crises. Those are among the groups that are there. I don't have the whole list, but as I mentioned, I can send out that list or the application, which does show the list and groups that we feel the most ready to serve based on population, by language, and by there's already an existing group in this area.
Any additional questions?
Let's have comment. I have a comment when you go through.
Okay, great. Okay, we're going to go to the public hearing portion. Is there anyone, Clerk Jones, wishing to speak in support of Substitute Bill 2143?
We have Sam Centellas from La Casa. Sam, if you would state your name and your address and unmute yourself.
Yeah, so Sam Centellas, I live at 2740 Miami Street. I work at 3423 South Michigan Street at La Casa de Amistad. And we're proud to support this. We've been proud partners with the URC in this process. Since 1973, La Casa de Amistad has worked with immigrants in this community, primarily of Latino background, and is excited to use our expertise, experience, and partnership with others in the community to help continue welcoming immigrants, specifically refugees from around the world, here to South Bend, and show them the type of welcoming community that we are, and embrace the rich culture that they will bring to our community. So we're very excited about this. Thank you, John, and your team for working hard on this. Thank you, Councilwoman Rachel and others on council that have worked hard to make this happen. And we appreciate your support for this community. And La Casa stands ready to do all that we can to continue to help this cause along. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Jones, is there anyone else present wishing to speak in support of Substitute Bill 2143?
There is no one else present wishing to speak in support of Substitute Bill 2143.
Is there anyone present wishing to speak in opposition?
There is no one present wishing to speak in opposition.
The public hearing portion is now closed. We'll go to council members who would like to make statements. Councilmember Davis, Councilman Eli Wax, and then I'll just go straight around.
Sure. Thank you. We were just having this sort of discussion in the clerk's office about just demographics before we came back on the floor, about demographics and support for different issues and who's impacted and who isn't impacted. Now, I am going to support this. I've already told Rachel that I will support this particular action. But the people that probably will read this somewhere else, like out in Washington, D.C. or something, they'll probably say, where are all the men at? Y'all didn't catch that, did you? Where are all the men at? You have all women sponsors. There are men that's on this council that are interested in participating. So, but with the idea of inclusion, we need to be very inclusive of other people's stories too, because I just said to Ken a few minutes ago, when you're talking about immigrant population, I said my people were imported. So where does that leave me in this discussion about being welcoming to other communities and other demographics and other cultures when they come into an area that has been tilled and worked for their refuge? And I think it's really horrible what's happening in those other communities and those parts of the world. I think it's horrible. It's evil. It's what it is. But just the stories that we are always up against, and making sure that we're sensitive to everybody's story if we're going to make sure that we're being inclusive of everyone. But you definitely have my support on this particular action, and good job.
Thank you,
But
Councilman.
next time, hey, I'm sure there's a man somewhere around here in this
Include you in the
world.
sponsorship. I missed a couple of you in.
Sure, you missed all of us.
Thank you so much. Councilman Eli Wax.
Thank you, President White. And I do want to thank John and the URC for the wonderful work that they do. Organizations like URC that support those in need, whether local or around the world, are invaluable and should be appreciated. That said, as members of the South Bend Common Council, our job is to represent residents of South Bend. That includes all our residents, whether they've lived here all their lives or whether they migrated here from other parts of the country or the world. It doesn't, in my understanding, however, include those who are not residents of South Bend. And while I personally support and appreciate the efforts of URC and Mr. Pinto, if there's anything I could do personally, I'd be happy to help. Just let me know. I do believe this resolution itself exceeds the scope of our duties as the council, and I will not be supporting it.
Thank you. Are there any other council members who would like to make statements at this time? Seeing none, I do know that if I'm correct, that the presenter or sponsors do have time for rebuttal. If needed or not, we can move forward with entertaining a motion.
Move
Seeing
for
none.
passage.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll regarding substitute bill 2143?
Councilmember Tomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wax,
Nay.
Councilmember Niskoski,
Aye.
President White,
Aye.
8 ayes.
Substitute Bill 21-43 has been adopted. We'll now move to bills on first reading. We do not have any bills under first reading. Is there any unfinished business? Council members? Councilwoman Lori Hammond?
Yes, I would just like to remind everyone that the survey for the age-friendly St. Joe County is still open, and I've asked that they post in the chat the link to that survey, if everyone could help the county in getting that survey up and completed so that we can move forward on that. And then secondly, I did neglect to ask the clerk's office if the special proclamation could be released in a press release. So we can talk after if you would like. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else under unfinished business council members would like to share? Seeing now, we'll now go to new business. Is there any new business from other council members? If not, as president of the South Bend Common Council, I would like to read the statement I did share with the council members as well as with others that I would be making a statement. And the statement reads as such: the recent media accounts regarding the position of the Director of the Community Police Review Board are troubling. The council and many members of previous council worked very long and very hard to develop the process resulting in the current ordinance. Those who worked tirelessly to develop the program faced political resistance, economic resistance, and in some cases, even community resistance. However, the events of the previous 18 months melted much of that resistance, and support for the Community Police Review Board increased to the point that passage of the ordinance could not be delayed any longer. The council understands that the success of any such program requires not only the engagement of all stakeholders, but also trust in the process. The council takes very seriously any challenge to that trust and will work hard to preserve that trust as council members work to pass the ordinance. What was originally only the council's proposed ordinance has become a beacon of hope to help heal this community. The council will not allow that beacon to be dimmed. We pledge to earn back the necessary trust. At this time, we cannot provide anyone with the details of what will be done due to state statutes and the Indiana Open Door Law. Council members cannot meet amongst themselves to deal with the issues. Discussions must take place in public meetings after notice to the public. Action plans must be made at public meetings with public input as well as a vote. Your input will be considered. Your trust will be earned. And so again, as we move forward, we will be working very closely with all the stakeholders, but most importantly among ourselves to ensure that we can move forward. So thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing from not only council members, but from others as well. We'll now move to the privilege of the floor. Is there anyone waiting to speak on the privilege of the floor?
Yes, we have Drew Duncan. Drew, if you would unmute yourself and state your name and your address for the record, please.
I would like to read the statement that on the privilege of the floor, citizens will have up to 3 minutes to share their comments. I would ask our attorney to keep time as well, and that once you get close to your 3 minutes, you will receive a notice, and that we will have up to 30 minutes under the privilege of the floor based on those individuals, citizens, wishing to speak. We do ask that you state your name and your address, please.
Drew Duncan, 2103 High Street, South Bend, Indiana. I'm coming to the council again. I'm coming about 2107 High Street. The address, I have still not been contacted by about, not an email, not a call, nothing. Tonight, I'm hoping, I just had conversations with several of the neighbors who are hoping to get on and speak to the council about this. But we really need to come to a resolution about what we're going to do with the vacant property, because the neighbors in this neighborhood have kind of had enough. And this is an opportunity for us as the people who live on High Street not to experience another tragedy on our street with a child falling into that basement or that house collapsing. And we just want a response back from someone that's willing to have a conversation about what can be done. As a citizen, I have exhausted my resources trying to get just a call about this property that is dilapidated. The grass is not cut. The property management company is doing nothing with it. And I own my home. Our neighbors own our homes. We pay taxes. And we kind of really want some answers around this. And we need that pretty quickly.
Mr. Duncan, is that the conclusion of your comments?
Yes, it is, ma'am.
Okay. I would like to say and apologize. I was hoping that you would still be on at our last meeting. I did send an email in regards to a number of those questions that you did ask. Unfortunately, it was kicked back to me, so I'm hoping that Aaron Perry did reach out to you regarding the golf balls, and if you could email me your email address, I'll make sure that you get the responses in regards to those first set of questions that you had.
I appreciate that, Madam President, but I'm also making comment to the house next door with the structural foundation issues. That right now, beyond the golf balls, you know, I can replace windows, but we might not be able to replace one of these kids that play in this neighborhood that they call home. And this hole is huge. It's not even fenced off right now. So it's just open where anybody can fall in there. And that's just a huge safety concern for our neighborhoods. And that's something very simple that we could address together.
Thank you, and you will get a response. I want to make sure that I have the correct address, 2107 High Street.
This is correct.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
You have a great evening. Clerk Jones, is there anyone else wishing to speak on the privilege of the floor?
I don't see anyone expressing interest to speak on the privilege of the floor. That exhausts the list.
Okay, thank you. Seeing that there's no one wishing to speak under privilege of the floor, this meeting stands adjourned. Unless everybody wants to stay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, President White.
Thank you.
Thank you.